Hey party people, welcome back to part two. Here we are, I'm with Tom Horvath. We have our 1964 retro rod Chevy Corvette. Wanted to bring you in for even more of the details. We talked to Ken, we discussed the engine in part one. Now we're gonna discuss the paint and body work. We've actually got Sam, the debuffer over there, prepping to start doing his magic on the paint. It's already been painted. But there's some things that I thought would make for some good content when it goes into a restoration project like this, which is a full custom build frame off restoration. So what is one of the things that you would like to, and meaning you and I were talking about this and I thought, okay, Tom, let's back up because I think this would be good content for my viewers to say like, hey, what kind of stuff goes into this? What are the details that you actually have to strategize? But before you can strategize, you have to actually be aware of. So part of this is letting them know like, hey guys, this is what you need to be aware of. Not that you're gonna do this, but maybe you have interest in it. So with that said is, what are we going to talk about in episode 2 here?
So one of the big things that Ken was talking about was details. You know?
Yes.
And that's what makes Ken's work so unique. I mean, it's such a cool car. But when you do all these details, you take the whole car apart, you take the frame, you take the doors off, everything comes apart on this car. So now when we put it all back together, we got to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
So now we're going to go back, adjust the doors, get the doors to fit perfectly before we give it to Sam to do the color sanding, because he's actually going to block the clear coat.
Okay.
And,
so blocking the clear coat is just a way of saying he's going to sand it, and block it literally means with using a block versus a hand, because your hand is malleable. It moves. So a block is going to create a more flatter. And when I say flat, I'm not talking about gloss level. I'm talking about texture. So we want to knock down some of that texture. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get texture with the repaint. And you know, we wanted extra clear put on the car. It's a restoration, so now we're going to take that extra paint off and make it as flat as we possibly can, and it's going to look awesome.
Yeah.
This car's going to look.
And I just want to clarify for people, because they will. That's what's such a mind F for pretty much any industry, is that you have this terminology that can be interpreted in different ways. So as detailers, when someone says flat, they in my experience, they automatically jump to gloss levels, you know, reflection, that type of thing. But we're actually talking about literally the paint texture. So the ultimate goal is the flatter, as in the texture, the surface can be, the glossier can be. That's really where you get that, what we would call in the industry, that wet look. You know, because what you're doing is you're creating the absolute perfect reflective surface for light to bounce off of. So you don't want to interrupt it with texture of the surface. You want depth, you want gloss, you want shine, you don't want swirl marks. So all those things go into it. Okay, so let's talk about the alignment of the doors in particular.
All right, so obviously the doors have been taken off the car. Now we've just
Is that actually obvious?
Yeah, I mean,
so when you're doing a full
restoration, you know, the doors are fully, this car is
completely disassembled.
Every nut and bolt is taken off of this car, every nut and bolt. So then they put the doors back on when you're painting the car, just to make sure everything, you know, is painted exactly the same color. So now the car, when you put it back on the chassis, because you don't paint this car on the new chassis, never, that'd be horrible. You know, there's thousands of dollars put into this chassis. Nothing worse than getting overspray, or like you're gonna watch the details that Sam does, because Sam's so accustomed to working on these type of cars, and the preparation of just making sure that no schmang gets on anything.
Good choice of words.
Yeah,
schmang.
Technical
By the way,
term.
I think in Britain, if you're watching this in the UK, or am I
Does that
thinking
mean
of
something?
well, see, I might be confusing with schmegma.
Oh, schmegma.
Have you ever heard of that
No,
term?
sounds
It's nasty.
bad.
It's
sounds
nasty. So schmeg.
But you might call that schmegma.
Yeah,
that stuff that gets all over the place.
Yes.
But Sam's going to do plastic wrap, everything.
Okay.
But here, obviously, you can see we've got big gaps here. We've got tighter gaps here.
Yes.
So now.
Now, is that door is actually not fully shut, though,
No,
correct?
it's not.
Because we're going to remove the door handles.
It actually can't fully shut yet. I mean,
Okay.
It's not adjusted yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick the door up, and we're going to get these gaps to fit as good as possible before Sam does any of his work on the car.
Okay. And what, aside from the obvious, which is, if I was the owner, do I want my doors misaligned? Well, the simple answer is, of course not. So, but when it comes to polishing, because you and I were talking about this before I turned the camera on, what is the fear factor of misaligned panels and doors and that kind of stuff?
I mean, Sam is experienced, so I'm not worried about Sam making a mistake.
Right.
But let's say I wasn't involved in this project and I just handed it off to somebody to color, sand, and rub. If the door is misaligned, the way that the buffer is going to hit these sharp edges, I'm going to burn them. I'm going to burn the paint right off of there.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important that we get everything lined up as good as possible before anybody touches it with the buffer.
Yeah.
And we are going to actually block the paint. So we're going to do the last block sand to this car with the thickness of the paint.
Okay. Okay, party animals. Here we have Tom, we've got Sam, and what they're working on is aligning the doors that we've been talking about in this episode. One of the many nuances, the many parts of the details that we want to get done properly before Sam does his magic in the wet sanding and polishing. Also over there, if you see it laying on the floor, let me zoom in. We've got the various emblems that will go back on once the car is fully completed. Here we have Sam. Hey, Sam. Hold that door nice and tight so Tom can get the proper alignment. So Tom and Sam are just going to work around. Good thing we only have 2 doors. That'll expedite the process here so that we have as perfect of alignment around the door seams as possible. So a couple of things is, not only do you want the alignment as far as the gap spacing between the doors is what we're worried about, but also the alignment down the body panels. So this is the type of alignment we're talking about when we talk about aligning the body panels. So you've got the panels themselves, the alignment of the hood. So anything that's movable or anything that has to come or piece together in sections. So you've got the front fender, you've got the door. So the fender obviously will be stationary, but it's got to be in alignment with the other moving parts like the hood, the door. Then you come to the back panel, etc., etc., etc. Okay. So is there anything else? I noticed that, like, for example, the emblems are all taken off.
Yeah, we took everything off.
Now, really, you could remove those bumpers. I mean, because really you want complete access to every part of this paint.
All of underneath the bumpers has already been addressed. All the color sanding has all been addressed before they were put on.
Okay.
Now they're put on because they had to do a lot of bracketry to the frame.
Yeah.
All those bumpers are attached to the frame.
Yeah.
And all of that bracketry was done when the car was up in the air.
Which, in my little brain, what you're describing is sequence. Because if you don't get the proper sequence done, then what happens is that you make mistakes that often can't be corrected. For example, you talked about the frame. You get some schmang on that, and now you get it in areas so tight that
terrible.
it's a nightmare to get out, if you can in fact get out, because there is areas that will be so tight that you will not be able to get it out. So what I'm trying to illustrate is how important sequence is, and this is where experience comes in. Whether you're a detailer working on original equipment or just a factory stock car, I don't care how much it costs or how much it didn't cost, but this is where sequence comes in, because you know, if you're repeating your steps, that's costing you money in the form of time.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think, you know, as we get to talk to a lot of guys who are doing regular collision work, and then they think, well, I'm slow, I'm going to get into restoration work. No, you're gonna go out of business, number one.
Okay, by the way, just to clarify for people, this is your world, and this is I think, what makes you and I unique as a team, because I come from the world of auto detailing. Now, there's a lot of parallels, but there is a vast expanse of difference between the methodology, the mindset between a full frame-off restoration, because the kind of restorations you did were in the hundreds of thousands of. In fact, you have a concourse win under your belt. How much money went into that?
$500,000.
$500,000. So guys, you know, in my world, guys freak out when they hear that, yeah, I'm doing a paint correction. I'm charging the customer $1,200, $1,500, $2,000. For you, you won't even touch a car for less than $4,000, and that's just literally to touch the paint. You're not going to do anything else.
You know, and I know, you know, I definitely want the guys who are definitely buying our product to make money. And we need to justify our hours. So like we were talking about, the hours it takes for the bumpers and all, if you don't account for that when you bid this job,
yes,
you're doing this for free.
Yes, you are.
And then there's no fun.
And I guarantee there's a many beginner detailer and that's such a struggle at the beginning.
It is.
And I'm sure you can empathize with this. At the very beginning, it's just like, well, you think you've accounted for all the things that you're going to have to go through until you realize you haven't. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think we're going to have to do this.
Yeah.
So we could wax, you know, pun intended, we could wax very long and deep about that subject alone, but that is your world, is custom auto body, custom restorations. So you are speaking from, I mean, how many decades of experience did you have in that world?
Started in 1980.
Okay, don't make me do the math. That's a lot of years.
That was a long time ago.
Because I started in '88.
Now I worked for my dad in a production body shop before that.
Even before that, yeah.
And my dad just like, you are nuts. Why would you want to get into restoration work? There's no money in that.
Yeah. But you figured it out,
But it did take a while.
Yes.
I worked on a lot of cars for free for many years, thinking I was charging enough. You know? First it was $1,000, then it was $2,000, then it was $10,000, $50,000 just for paint. You know, people are like, oh my gosh, you can't charge it. Well, you can when you have to do all of this work, and you find yourself, because now you're paying lots of other people to touch it, and you're going through process, just like you were talking about details. You have to teach process along this whole track of detail. You know, when do we put the bumpers on? Because you know, the car is. You put new bumper pads on the chassis, and that's one of the reasons the doors aren't fitting right now too, because these are fresh bumper pads on here.
Fresh bumper pads on an old car.
Yeah, and on an old car, but you've got, you know, brand spanking new frame, you know, where the pad meets the body.
Right.
And now everything's setting up a little bit more. Everything's going to be perfect when he drives it down the road. But everything misaligns on the car. So we want to now go back, readdress it. This is the last time that we'll adjust these doors.
Yes, before, because you want to get that, what you'd call nitty-gritty work done before this final step of, you know, going into that last step of detailing, which in this case is going to be wet sanding it, blocking it, as you would call it, and polishing it to perfection.
Nothing worse, I hate this, is we get all done, and then people need to put their hands all over the car and move things around.
It's like,
oh my gosh, we just got done polishing that car. Don't touch. Right now, it hasn't been polished yet. We've got orange peel, you know, the factory or the, you know, from just out of the gun. And, you know, we can touch it and do all the things we need to do, but then after Sam gets done,
right,
we don't want no paws touching this thing no more.
Okay, so any other issues, alignment issues or anything else before, because I'm going to dissect this into a few videos. So any other issues that you want to,
no, we're going to do the hood, we'll do the bolt doors. This is a pretty simple car. You've just got the hood and the 2 doors.
I don't look at it as simple, by the way.
It's a bitchin'
You know
car.
why?
I mean, this is a really cool car.
For example, we've got these vents right up here at the front. We've got these headlights that pop up.
Yeah.
We've got this accent here at the nose.
Down here, we've got to protect all of this because, boy, you get that schmang down in here.
Yes.
You never get it out of there.
I mean, we got a scoop on the hood. I mean, look at these. Those are some sharp character lines. Like
really
in the body shop world, what do you call these?
Peak lines.
Peak lines?
Peak lines, yeah.
Okay. In my world, I call them character lines.
Yeah.
So when you say simple, I would never look at, I mean, look how sharp this
cool,
peak line across the hood is, or the roof is.
Yeah, that's really neat.
I mean, these are all booby traps. As a polisher, a wet sander, it's just like, these are just booby traps waiting to just explode in your face if you don't apply proper technique based on, you know, a lot of years of experience.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's leave it there. You can see Sam over there prepping. Hey Sam, I'm zooming in right now. Give us a little wave over there. I see you're prepping your stuff. So we're gonna cut this right now, and then I'm gonna pull you on camera, and you're gonna give us some tips and pointers and kind of dissect what your part of the process will be. So guys, tune in to part 2.